Uh, just to brief, this is a concluding session of this round bounce forward talks. In all, we have started these talks from the last week, where till date we have covered almost 8 industry leaders, and this is our last session. And as it is said, this is a session which I call it icing on the cake, with respect to the guest which we have on this forum, as well as with respect to the feedback which we have received from the audience regarding this particular webinar. So without wasting further time, I welcome each one of you for this webinar. And today we have with us Mr. Arjun Jain of Varroc Group. I'll quickly introduce Mr. Arjun Jain. Mr. Arjun Jain is a business head of Mr. Arjun Jain is the whole-time director and business head of electronics and electrical division of Varroc Engineering, degree mix and from New York. He was also associated with Ben & Company India Private Limited before joining Varroc. Just to give a quick introduction of Varroc Group, I'm sure everyone knows about it. Varroc Group has almost 41 manufacturing units, must be more than that. I'm sure Mr. Jain will give us the exact number. But what I heard is 41 units. The employees more than 14,000 people. Varroc is the second largest in terms of Indian auto components group, and it supplies to most of the OEMs. So thank you, sir, once again for accepting our invitation and even accommodating these technical glitches. And we'd like to start by hearing from you regarding, just give us some brief about Varroc as such and its operations.
Yep. I'm more than happy to be here also. So, Varroc, I would say, Varroc is a multi-billion-dollar, global auto component technology. We operate in 2 core markets. The first is the global passenger car lighting market, and also the Indian 2 and 3-wheeler mobility market, where we supply, 17 different product lines into the 2 and 3-wheelers today. Today, approximately 40% of our revenue is manufactured in India, and the balance 60% in our global locations. And the last thing that I will say is, we take a great amount of pride in the fact that we produce our own technology, and we own IP that delivers almost, I would say, 99% of our sales today.
Great. So, sir, today we are seeing that because of this lockdown, Ramayana and Mahabharata is back on television screen. And this Ramayana and Mahabharata has taken to that historical era. And when we talk about historically, Arjun is known for, first of all, defining that bullseye and hitting the bullseye. So when we correlate it with this modern Arjun, what is the bullseye for the modern Arjun?
I don't know as much about maybe the Mahabharata here, but I think I think in terms of what are really targets and I would say critical objectives today, I think the obvious answer, of course, is cost, and there is no doubt that we will need to reduce our costs and hence our break-even points. However, I think if you ask me, cost alone will not be enough. Today, there is no certainty around when sales will recover, and hence staying close to our customers and ensuring we keep achieving market share gains is also extremely key. Further to that, I think in this COVID-19 scenario in particular, safety is the topmost priority. At Varroc, we are extremely clear that our number one objective right now is to ensure that we remain infection-free as an organization. And the third key aspect, as I mentioned before, of course, will be cost. However, I think we need to be extremely diligent that we drive true efficiency improvement rather than ways to cut. I say this because, while spending budgets will be lower, it is mission critical right now to ensure we keep investing in, our strategic priorities. Because now maybe it will happen 6 months down the line, maybe it will happen a year down the line, maybe it will happen 5 years down the line. But one day the market will recover, and we must make sure that we have positioned ourselves to take the maximum advantage of that growth, of that recovery.
Great. Thanks for that, sir. So when we look at auto sector, in fact, I am a follower of auto section. I very closely follow auto sector. And when we look at auto sector, it is facing the shocks since 2019, early 2019. In fact, the entire 2009 was a shockful year for the auto sector, with so many things coming one by one. And now even with 2020, now we have this current crisis situation. So how are you dealing with this entire shockful years?
So I think the recipe to deal with has changed too significantly, regardless of whether it is COVID or economic recession or whatever it is. So a lot of what I just spoke about previously with respect to COVID, I think is where we began the effort at Varroc, early in 2019. Of course, the additional impact of COVID is incremental safety measures, and that goes without saying. And I would say the additional, maybe opportunity, you can call it almost, is to potentially look to use our capabilities to make products like masks, which we are already making, first for captive consumption and then possibly for the outside, and also, maybe ventilators tomorrow. So, I think, COVID-19, I don't really think it's changed a lot of the challenges that we had from a business perspective. Of course, from a safety perspective, it has dramatically changed the situation. Um, so, as far as I am, as far as I am concerned, I think it is really on our we really defined last year. And the key highlights, again, to kind of summarize, is drive real efficiency improvement, and to stay very close to our customers and ensure that we are giving to them what they really need. Because let's be honest, the environment is tough for everyone, not just for the suppliers, it's also for the OEMs.
Okay. So now, when we look at auto sector, it is always a kind of a trend setter in the industry. What are the good practices which has happened in the domain of manufacturing? Most of the things have emerged out of an auto sector, whether you call it the techniques of operational excellence, techniques of innovation management, techniques of people management. Auto sector is the leader. And they also say that going forward post this crisis situation, the way manufacturing used to operate will change. So what changes do you anticipate, and will those changes will be still initiated by auto sector? Will auto sector initiate those changes and keep leading this moment?
As an industry, we have no option but to do so. The reality before us, and I speak specifically about India now and not necessarily the rest of the world, though there is also significant impact there, is that our market volume will quite possibly have shrunk 30% over 2 years. Now, maybe it will recover, maybe it will not. It is, impossible to predict. However, we have to be relentless now when it comes to driving efficiency improvement. And to do this, we must keep I think auto is very good at benchmarking itself, and I think we must keep benchmarking our practices internally, of course, first, within organizations across the industry in India and also abroad. But I would also say definitely outside of our industry also, because there's definitely innovation, etc., that takes place everywhere. So we must make sure we keep learning and we keep driving improvements. The second key factor I also feel will be adaptability and driving effective change management. Talking about yet, but I think there is quite likely that we are not sure what exactly consumer behavior will be after the crisis ends. Right now, there is no way to predict. There is no way to predict the impact a crisis of this magnitude will really have on how each of us think about our purchases. For example, the hand sanitizer industry, which I have no doubt is experiencing significant growth right now. Okay, they will probably not be at the same level of growth or sales maybe 12 months down the line. But for sure, if we compare with pre-COVID-19 levels for that particular, let's say, market and industry, they will experience growth. And this is because the relevance of hand sanitizers to personal hygiene has increased for all of us, right?
Yeah.
For an industry like auto, I would say, we are still relatively lucky because we service a very basic and core need, that is the need for mobility. Others, and sometimes niche requirements, I think these will, possibly change. And hence, we need to really focus on listening to our customers and adapting very quickly to new needs.
Right. So, and we always say that for the Indian manufacturing industry, and typically if I talk about the auto industry as such, SMEs are the backbone of these industries. Today, the people who have suffered a lot are SMEs because they have limited resources, limited cash reserves. So, this current situation where everything was stopped for a quite good number of days, they are suffering a lot. So, how does the big organizations like Varroc intend to support this sector going forward?
So I think this is a great question, and of course, there is a lot of arguments out there in terms of what further and more can be done. But I would say right now, I think two things. One is for the SMEs in our own ecosystems. I think it is very important to. I think it is very important to their business compromised upon in this time, because of course they will be going through their own challenges also. We will need to create, even after we recover from the crisis, win-win situations for both. But if you ask me, I think the biggest thing, I think the most significant commodity we can really offer, I think, is knowledge. Even something as simple as defining a restart checklist, at an extremely granular level is not necessarily easy. And I say that because it needs to be extremely comprehensive to truly serve the purpose, which is to avoid infection, right? Now, a small mistake, can put paid to the most significant effort and most significant, cost that we have put behind towards an effective restart. And that's why here I feel larger organizations, I think, have a responsibility to share with their ecosystems um methods to be able to start again. And what we should really all be very careful about, even if not to be altruistic, but to ensure sustainability of their own chain. A outbreak and even a tier 3 or a tier 4, can destroy the ability to manufacture a car or a motorcycle.
Sure. So I'm sure there is some ray of hopes for the SMEs from the organizations like you, and people like you will lead this particular support initiative for the SME sector for sure.
Yeah, of course. And I think anybody that is not, I don't think it is a very sustainable way of looking at things if you're not looking to really protect your partners.
So when we were talking about pre-crisis situation, there was a way of IoT, so Internet of Things, Industry 4.0 revolutions, and all those things were getting discussed. Many organizations were exploring those. Some of those were investing in those quite heavily. I know you were also one of those who were exploring and investing in IoT things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what will be your outlook to this things now? Will you still keep investing, or you redefine your objectives from these initiatives?
No, I think IoT is, I think undoubtedly investment in IoT will continue. And, I said earlier also, it is extremely important that we keep, that we drive efficient cost reduction so that we are able to keep investing in what is strategically critical. The role IoT plays at Varroc is to ensure, the biggest role IoT plays at Varroc is to ensure effective prioritization of action, to ensure we focus where we receive the greatest rewards for our effort. Um, you know, if you ask me from a just size of or ticket size of investment, it is not necessarily even always the largest investment that is really going to the shop floor, and it will, on its own, if you ask me for that, let's say ticket size will always provide a return. Um, However, for organizations, like us that have the ability to drive improvement, it is strategically critical to ensure we always have the best information and drive the most relevant action. And I think IoT is a critical lever to really kind of achieve this. So, from our perspective, I don't think we are really expecting to. Now, of course, if capacity is down 30%, maybe you don't need to use all the lines that you were using previously. But where we are manufacturing, where we are producing, um, yeah, I don't think that we are looking to now say that we will not do it, because there was a reason we started doing it.
Right. So over the period of times, what we are seeing there, the volumes of auto industry have gone for a lot of fluctuations, and as you were just mentioning, currently it's more in the range of 25 to 30% kind of a average volume. So when auto industry, as per you, will come back to normal, or will it be a new normal with new different sets of volumes as a benchmarking figures?
Mm-hmm. I think, if anyone really knows the answer to this question, I think they should immediately switch careers and become a financial investor now. Um, to predict is, impossible, right? I mean, nobody could have predicted what is happening right now, right? At Varroc, approach to accumulate and adapt using the levers that I've already talked about. And if there are gains in the future, driving optimization now will only enable greater leverage in the future, right? So, I think essentially what I'm trying to say is, what we are going to do now. And I think that living in the now is going to really determine who comes out of this effectively and who does not come out of this effectively.
So, what do you think, sir? When you say who and who does not, what's your guidelines or maybe yardsticks to measure those? These are the set of people who will come back, and these are the set of people if they doesn't do these checks, it's difficult for them to come back. So, what advice would you like to give to your fellow industry leaders in order that everyone should come back after this crisis situation?
I think what I would say, and I would not necessarily, I think industry leaders, I think they're generally all very smart people. So I don't really think there is too much that I can potentially really advise them on. But I think in general, the approach that I would the approach that I would advocate, and not necessarily even at a leadership level, at an individual level, is that, our industry is under threat. This is not the time to be scared. This is, if you ask me, the time to really, pull our socks up and work hard and really prepare. Prepare for the improvement that needs to be driven. We have to accept that there is significant change at hand, and we must make the effort and adapt.
Okay. And something that we were talking about cost reduction drives, or in general, I will call it like a more of an in the domain of operational excellence drive. So, of course, there was some amount of focus which was there, always there from the auto industry on operational excellence tools and techniques, but mainly from quality perspective or other efficiency perspective. Now, what kind of a reorientation that you foresee where operational excellence has to play a key role going forward? Because the margins are under pressure.
They've survived for, I think they've survived for decades now, right? So, I would not necessarily get too much into, really questioning theory, right? Quality is still something that is critical.
Yeah.
Shop floor efficiency is still something that is critical. I would honestly not advocate a change in prioritization, or I would not honestly advocate a change in prioritization. But I would definitely say, in terms of, when we go into our jobs every single day, there needs to be a tremendous focus, not just on the routine, but in terms of driving improvement. You know, tools and techniques, you know, like you said, and let's say from, agencies like yours also, are always available. But we must look to make sure we activate every single individual really in the industry to, make sure we are driving this improvement, because, improvement driven only from the top can only have limited effect, right? I think the focus needs to be not necessarily to say I'm targeting. I think the focus needs to be to make sure, with the same resource, our teams feel very, very empowered to drive the improvement that is really required.
Mhm.
I don't know if that, really kind of makes complete sense. I can further clarify on anything also.
Definitely, it helps a lot. So, I also tend to agree with you on that part that we have, it's not necessary to really change everything, but we have to keep focusing on the things which we are doing it and then further improve it on a further basis. So, that's good, sir. And what will be the role of innovation in this entire scenario going forward?
No, I think innovation is key, right? I think lots of times, when we talk about innovation, I think we think innovation is at, a product level and things like that. But, I think innovation is an attitude. I think can be in improving a process, can be in improving a product, can be in improving a business function. You know, when I say that we have to look at, every single individual in our teams to be part of this improvement activity, is exactly what I mean. We must all be creative, we must all be thinking out of the box, and we must all be looking to achieve improvements in our day-to-day jobs, right? It will require us maybe to push ourselves out of our comfort zones, in a lot of places. But again, to survive, I think, and to do well, I think this is something that we have to do, right? So, when I say, when we say innovation, I agree 1000%. Innovation is key, but we should not look only to our R&D functions to drive innovation, right? We must look at each and every one of us to drive innovation, right? I have to drive innovation in terms of how I run my business unit.
Great. That's a very good paradigm which you are setting. That it's not only R&D, it's the management, it's the operator, the middle management. Everyone can drive that innovation and give those breakthroughs to survive in the situation. So my question box is flooding with the questions from the audience. So I will curtail my questions over here, but with the last question, as it is said that in business lies a kind of an astrologer who can predict what is going to happen to his business or overall industry in future. So this is a question to a hidden astrologer in you, sir. What do you foresee volume of 2021 as compared with 1920 for the auto industry?
Um, just off the top of my head, I think volume, I think, is going to be stressed. I think we have lost 1 month completely. I think for the next 4 or 5 months, there will be challenges. I think in the last 6 months, the volumes might start to, I think the volumes will probably start to recover. And I think some of the pent up demand also might start to get released. However, having said that, I think we also need to be cognizant of the fact that even if we forget COVID, right, and even before COVID really happened, as an industry, we have transitioned now from BS4 to BS6, and there is a significant impact as a percentage on the cost of vehicles. So, how does honestly April we would have thought would be an indicator, but we don't have this indicator yet either. So if you really are pressing me for an answer, I will give you really maybe a conditional answer, which is I do think in the last 6 months of the year things should start to get better. Of course, this assumes that COVID recovery will be one step comprehensive and we will not have another relapse of some kind. But yeah, the specter almost of this changeover to BS6 also looms. So I think we have to be very, very alert in terms of what really the revised market scenario is going to be.
Thanks for those inputs. So now I will open up for the audience question answers. Already audience have started flooding the question box. So I will try to give justice to as many as possible audience, but I may not be able to give justice to all. So my apologies right at the start for those for whose question I may not be able to give justice. So first question, many people have concerns related to hygiene and avoid public transport if possible. Do you think it will support the growth in the auto sector where people will more go for personalized vehicles?
Possibly. For sure, the desire to use, in particular, and I think this is already a very widely held view, but guys like Uber and Ola for sure can possibly expect some impact, because their customer has the option really to do I do a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler, or do I use an Uber or an Ola, right? So there might be some uptick in demand as a result of that. Where will that demand come? Whether it come, will it come in scooter? Will it come in motorcycle? Will it come in car? These are questions that are equally important to answer, because the effort that you will make, the effort that you will make will generally be specific to a particular drivetrain. It could possibly even be a transport. So yes, maybe volumes will recover, but that does not help alone, because it really depends on where the volumes will recover, right? And that itself can have a significant impact in terms of, let's say, if Varroc is comparing Varroc with, let's say, company X, Y, and Z. Um, in India, for example, we're very two-wheeler and three-wheeler focused, right? Maybe two-wheeler and three-wheeler will do really well, and but the four-wheeler maybe does not recover as well. That is potentially going to be that will not be very good for, let's say, companies that are more focused on the four-wheeler space. Conversely, if the opposite happens for guys like Varroc, the challenge will still continue. So yes, a recovery might happen, but trying to predict a recovery and hoping that recovery will solve all our problems, I don't think is the right attitude. And that's why, I think worrying too much about when recovery is going to take place, I think, to be very honest, I think it is a waste of time beyond the point.
Okay. This is the next question is related to especially EVs will replace IC engine vehicles.
Again, I think
I will redefine may not be replaced, but what will be the impact?
see, I think for today, I think we already have EVs on the market, which at a cost of ownership level over 2 years, 3 years, work out actually really well vis-a-vis their competition, right? Having said that, to truly make the EV sustainable, and when I say sustainable, like we were talking about the seminar also, demand and supply. The OEMs must be able to achieve those price points while also making a level of profitability, right? There is no chance that the EV market will transition at this current price point and unit economics for the OEM, right? So if you ask me, it is the role of really suppliers like us, the companies reduce the real BOM cost of an EV. If we are able to achieve the price point that is in the market today in a way that is profitable for the OEMs, I think for sure, yes, you will start to see significant movement. Of course, there is infrastructure challenges, etc., and all. But see, if the customer starts buying, the infrastructure will come. So, if you ask me, I think the challenge for EV today is to make sure at a unit economics level, it is profitable for OEMs. Otherwise, it will not be pushed beyond the point.
Now, this is a question from, I guess, coming from an SME. Like, can organizations like Varroc look for having a common platform for managing their suppliers on quality, business management, cost reduction, and managing the KRAs and creating a kind of a competitive atmosphere?
I think they must, I think now, for example, at Varroc today, we already have, very strong supplier scorecards. We track what is, in automotive, as the mantra is QCD always. Sometimes for proprietary supply. So the QCD, even at Varroc today, is already tracked. Further to that, even methods to improve, we have a fairly strong supplier upgradation team also. And, like I said, for our own sustainability, we must make this effort, because the stronger our ecosystem is, the stronger we are, right? So, I think it goes without saying. I think if there is organizations out there which don't have it, I think it is critical for them to start developing it, because you want to make sure your partners are the strongest and they're very clear on what the customer's expectation of them is.
So there's another question which says that, we have also seen in the recent news that Japan, US, Europe are looking forward to move their facilities from China to some other countries. What are the views of Varroc in this, and how Indian auto sector is going to tap this opportunity?
Yeah, I would say this is definitely an opportunity. I think for sure, for political reasons, this is something that I think we've already seen the US and Japan announce packages to US and Japanese companies to relocate out of China. I think when you have an incentive like that, I think it becomes very attractive for organizations. However, I will also, maybe take this with a little bit of caution, because a lot of these packages are to relocate back into their own country, right? They're not always to relocate into a different foreign country. But for whatever is the amount that is available to relocate into a different foreign country, I think India is definitely a very strong contender. And if you ask me, the biggest reason we are a strong contender is because we have a reasonably developed industry. And I think we have a very strong, I think we have a lot of human capital potential in terms of the, just the number of engineers we produce here. I think for organizations looking to relocate, I think there is a lot of positive factors about India.
Okay. One more question says that what would be the major investment post-COVID? Will it human resource hygiene related things, or going on maximum investment on automation? So automation versus human hygiene. So where will be the companies will be investing?
You see, I think you have to draw a balance, right? I think, of course, we will bet in different places, right? Hygiene will definitely be a bet that people take. Automation, 100% will be a bet that people take. I think automation in particular is a bet that people have been taking already for a while. I think even if we forget COVID for a second, there is an impact of increases in minimum wage, etc., and things like that, right? And that will, that is a reality that is not going to go away. So if we really want to maintain the unit economics that we have right now, I think automation is critical to investing. But I think it will that is really required. I think if you ask me, I think it should be in human capital. To really ensure that we are driving more out of each member in our team than what we have been doing before. And I think even if I look at if you ask me, I think organizations that focus on this are the organizations that will really, I think are the organizations that will really build strong sustainability into their systems. because there is a value to consistency, and I think the biggest sorry, just give me a second. I'm just trying to quickly figure out how to rephrase. Um, Regardless of, I think in automotive, the one reality that is there now, and whether we look at the slowdown in 2019, whether we look at COVID, everything is more and more disrupted, right? So adaptability, if you ask me, is really becoming the most important factor for any organization, right? And the reason I say human capital investment is critical is because the adaptability is driven by people, right? So we must focus on making our people ready for the idea of extremely rapid movement and change in an industry which, and I don't mean this as a negative, I mean this, it's a good thing only, but in an industry that has generally been more traditional and very cautious about making changes. And the reason for that, if you ask me, is the severe implication of on quality, and like automotive, more than any other more than a lot of other industries, quality really is much more, quality really has an extremely crucial impact, right? A Zoom call or a webinar, doesn't work, we can postpone by an hour. Somebody's car investment, when I talk about it, it must be driven to ensure that we build the right behaviors and professional skills to be able to drive effective change management, effective innovation, and all of these nice things that we always talk about, but at the same time being very conscious of the quality of the impact on really quality and what we are delivering to our end customers.
Okay. So I'll take last two questions because the questions are so many, but I think we have a limited time. So I'll just take last two questions. The one question says, having so much of disturbances in the auto sector in recent years, are automakers looking for a more diversified business, and what's the Varroc thinks about it?
Sorry. The question just broke up a little bit. Sorry.
So
I
it
didn't get
says
it fully.
there's so much of a disturbance in the auto sector, and it keeps happening. So will automakers looking for more diversified business?
So I don't, again, now this is very much my personal opinion, but I don't believe in the idea of driving a lot of diversification, right? I think,
Mhm.
I think the industry, yes, is getting disrupted, but I think when there is change taking place, I think it is extremely important to focus on your core, right? Now, if you go and start focusing on a different industry altogether, and there is all this change taking place in automotive, there will always be a guy who has decided, actually this is the main thing for me, right? And then you are going at something with 50% effort, but you are still competing with people who are going at it with 100% effort, right? So if you ask me right now, the objective really needs to be, how do I win in my market? Because my market I understand best, right? Now let's say even earlier, we talked about potentially making ventilators, right? Ventilator is not, now let's say even if Varroc, we start becoming part of a few ventilator supply chains, or maybe we make our own ventilator as a market leader today, right? Or at least in the next year or two, right? So it is not necessarily, moving to a new market is something that takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of research, and consumes a lot of bandwidth, right? So if that decision is being made, it must truly be for some truly exceptional opportunity. Otherwise, I really think the focus needs to be, how do we deal with what is going on in our market, and how do we become tougher to be able to deal with these things in a more effective fashion.
Very well said, sir. Focus on your strength instead of running for those things where you do not have real competitive advantage. Very well said, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go with last question, and it says that it is expected that after this crisis are over, because there are so much of losses which each organizations have incurred, OEMs will start putting cost reduction pressures on tier one suppliers like Varroc. What will be the approach these guys will do? Will it absorb or will it add on the next 20 years?
You see, I think, OEM will always come for cost, right? It is, they have, there is big purchase departments that, I think, where, I think one of the, a key KRA, or at least 30% of the KRA will always be on achieving more effective cost, right?
Yeah.
We have to, sympathize with our customers also and be empathetic and recognize that they are also facing challenges, right? And this is why I say that we must focus on driving our own internal efficiency improvement, right? Because if you just give away cost without actually having saved cost, without having actually saved cost ourselves, this is again not sustainable, right? So we have to make sure we are driving our own cost savings, and of course we have to do some effective negotiations with our customers also. But you know we have to be open to the idea that yes, customers will come, and it is their right to come. And if there is somebody else who is able to do it, there is no excuse to not.
Great. Right, sir. So I guess we should take a pause here because the time is running, and already because of technical glitch, we have consumed lots of your time. So we'll take a pause of this discussion over here. I'm sure our audience will get one more opportunity some point in the future to have some more interaction with you and get some of the unresolved questions again answered at that point of time. With this, we are also concluding on this bounce forward series. So, as a concluding remarks, I'll say that I'd like to thank our partners, CII, Young Indians, Ahmedabad chapter, and since it's a concluding chapter, so I'll take few names in next couple of minutes. That special thanks to Ahmedabad YI chapter chair, Viral Shah co-chair, Dhruv Desai, Roundtable India, LAPD team, Tabler Swaraj Lahoti for their support. Of course, we are definitely thankful. I'd like to express my thanks to my co-host, who are another Panda. Special thanks to the series manager, Priyal Shah, for coordinating the entire series, and team Faber Infinite for supporting them. And last and not least, the audience who have joined. Just to give you some numbers, we conducted almost 9 bounce forward talks. We had a registration of more than 3,000 people for those. And out of those 3,000 people, more than 2,500 people have actually attended those talks. These are just numbers which were there present on this forum. Plus, all these talks are available on YouTube, and every day we are getting good number of hits on the YouTube channel as well. So, thank you everyone for this encouraging response to Bounce Forward talks. I hope these talks have made your lockdown a bit relaxed to gain some new knowledge from the industry leaders like Mr. Jain, and must be helping you to sharpen your axe so that when the situation will be normalizing, you are much better prepared to leverage the situation. So with this, I once again thank the guest for investing his time, sharing his perspectives, and we really look forward to host you again sometime in the future. Till then,
thank you very much, and I really enjoyed this conversation also. So thank you.
Our pleasure, sir. And thank you, audience, for attending this interaction even with these technical glitches, and stay tuned, and till that time, stay home and stay healthy. Thank you.